SBMM, or skill-based matchmaking, has been at the forefront of controversial topics when it comes to Call of Duty, and the conversation remains the same with the launch of Modern Warfare 2 and upcoming free-to-play modes Warzone 2 and DMZ. In this video, I'll break down what SBMM is in case you've been living under a rock. I'll also discuss the arguments for those in favor of SBMM as well as those against it, and ultimately why it's bad for the game. This is an extremely passionate topic from both sides of the argument, and I won't lie to you, I do represent the side for removing skill-based matchmaking, but before you cast my opinion aside, I ask that you hear me out all the way to the end. Before we dive into the juice, if you're new here, my name is Fixate, and my entire channel is dedicated to the extraction shooter genre, where I make guides and live streams all here on YouTube. So if you're looking for future Call of Duty DMZ content, then consider dropping a sub. If you don't know, skill-based matchmaking, or SBMM, is what competitive multiplayer games use to match players together based on whatever criteria the publisher or developers decide. In most cases, games choose to match players based on statistics like kill-to-death ratio, or some other good stat that paints a picture of that player's overall skill level in the game. Other things like geolocation, time of day, and matchmaking speed can all play a role in the types of lobbies that you get, because the larger the player pool, the easier it is for the algorithm to meet its intended goals. For example, the weekends will have way more players playing, and thus a stringent algorithm will more easily be able to match players. Skill-based matchmaking has been in Call of Duty for a long time to some degree, even back in the Call of Duty 4 days, but by the time Advanced Warfare released, players started to notice a massive increase in the algorithm's strictness. High kill-to-death ratio players were waiting in excess of 5 to 10 minutes just to find a single game of search and destroy. Since then, the strictness has remained, but now the geographical range has been massively widened. This means that SBMM can maintain its high level of strictness while still getting players quickly into a game. Now, why does nearly every competitive multiplayer game do this? Games do this to quote-unquote help protect players that are new or perhaps lack the refined skills that others have to ensure that they still enjoy playing the game. The more players of different skills that enjoy the game, the more players that will regularly log in to play, keeping population high and also widening the chance of them spending additional money throughout the game's lifecycle. Using SBMM in your game is a business decision, and the perceived protection of players is a false pretense used by publishers like Activision to hide their underlying greed. Trust me when I tell you that Activision doesn't care about you or your gaming experience. They only care about money and extracting as much money from you and every other person that plays their game. Now, I'm not really faulting them for that. I do understand how business works, but many people get it twisted in their heads as to the motivations for skill-based matchmaking being in the game in the first place. The main argument from those that are in favor of SBMM is that they lack the time to play because of real-life responsibilities, and I totally get that. People with 5 kids and a full-time job are only going to be able to play a couple hours a week, and thus can't refine their skills to the level of someone playing 30 hours a week. If SBMM is removed, I'm going to be constantly getting stomped on by better players, and then the game won't be fun for me anymore. What they don't realize is that their experience will not change for the large part, even if SBMM is removed. Using the millions of players in Warzone, for example, take a look at the light orange and the dark orange bars that you see on this graph. You can clearly see the most represented KD ranges are between 0.6 and 0.9. The vast majority of players that play Call of Duty are falling into this skill range, which means that if SBMM was removed, you would still likely get a similarly skilled lobby as you do now, with an occasional above-average player appearing here and there. Another thing you need to understand is that the above-average players, or sweats if you will, are really only represented by a KD of 2.0 or higher in my opinion, which only represents around 5% of the total player base. And even then, if you did get paired with one of them, there's a 50% chance that they might even be on your team. In all reality, skill-based matchmaking is actually hurting players of average skill more than it's helping them. Being in the same lobby as a great player will only make you better. These games are not all about accuracy. Learning how to be better positioned in the map or playing together better with your teammates can be more important than having pinpoint accuracy. An inherent aspect of gaming in general is a player's desire to improve and get better at the game, learning from mistakes and learning from the losses. I think the case for average players is pretty clear, but when it comes to subpar players or brand new players, I do think there's some leeway here. Brand new players to Call of Duty should be protected, which is why I believe that to a certain point, let's say level 10 or level 20, or somewhere in the middle there, on a brand new account, these players should have SBMM to protect them while they learn the game. However, once they reach a certain threshold, they should be thrown together with the masses. Now, there has been an ongoing conversation in favor of having ranked game modes that use SBMM and supplant the need for SBMM in public or casual matches. This idea has been brought up by major influencers like Dr. Disrespect and many others. But as it stands, even if and when ranked modes are available, Activision will still use SBMM in its casual matches as well. And this brings up another point. The highest quality players and content creators are also the biggest influencers and champions of the game. A single creator like Dr. Disrespect can influence millions of players. If these influencers are constantly being frustrated with the game and showcasing that being a skilled player comes with great penalty, their audience will naturally steer away from the game. As a 2.5 KD Warzone player myself and an avid Search and Destroy fan, last year I finally quit playing Call of Duty entirely and haven't played a single game in 2022 up until this Modern Warfare 2 release. After a while, it just wasn't worth it anymore. It's just too draining. People that play at the highest level have to do so with total focus and intensity. Forcing them to maintain that level of focus every single time they load up a game is honestly not good for your health. And players that at the highest level do have the ability to actually play casually despite common belief. You know, play the game for fun. For example, I like to enjoy a beer or two in the evenings. Even this slight impairment to my sobriety is enough to set me back to a point where I'm constantly just getting steamrolled by players with faster reaction times. Now you're going to say, but wait, this is exactly what you're describing, what average players are trying to avoid as well. But the difference is, if SBMM was removed, the average player would not even remotely feel the same experience that we do, how we feel playing these high-tier players over and over again. In the case of Modern Warfare 2, for example, 6v6 multiplayer, if SBMM was removed, it would be a statistical anomaly for an average player to encounter a sweat. At worst, it would be one of the 12 players in the lobby would have a KD above a 2.0. Now, with skill-based matchmaking cranked all the way up to 11, which is the way it is now, the chances are more like 8 out of the 12 or higher are going to have a 2.0 KD or more. This would be the equivalent of me sitting down at a table at Caesar's Palace to play some cards, enjoy some poker on a vacation, right? And all of a sudden, Johnny Chan, Doyle Brunson, and Phil Hellmuth just sit right down at my table and start staring at me. And I'm like, damn, okay, I'm gonna bounce to the next table. I'm not in it to go hard in the paint with the best players in the world, right? So I go to another table, I sit down, and guess who follows me over to the table? That's right, freaking World Series of Poker champions. Now, don't get me wrong, it's definitely fun to get a full lobby of great players to test your skill once in a while in Call of Duty, but forcing players to maintain that level of focus and intensity in every single game that they play is truly bad. An average player suffers playing an occasional game with a sweat in it, or all sweats suffer every single game that they play. It's not even close to the same argument, in my opinion. I know that I'm likely not going to be changing anyone's mind here, but I do hope that perhaps you'll have a different perspective on this highly controversial topic. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day and good luck in all your games.